The night was quiet over the mountains of Chile, where the lunar deep scan array operated in silence. The observatory's large dish antennas stretched toward the sky, turning slowly, scanning the endless dark. Inside the control room, Dr. Elena Torres sipped a lukewarm cup of coffee while watching streams of data crawl across her monitor. She had been on shift for 12 hours straight, monitoring deep space energy signatures. Normally, the screen displayed the usual patterns: background cosmic noise, occasional signals from distant pulsars, and the rare blip of a passing asteroid. But tonight, something was different. A thin, sharp spike appeared on the graph. Lasted less than a second, then vanished. Elena frowned and adjusted the scanner's focus. Another spike appeared, a little stronger this time, and then another. Each signal came from the same location, far beyond Pluto's orbit. Her heart began to beat faster. She quickly ran a cross-check with the backup antenna to rule out a hardware glitch. The backup confirmed it. The signals were real, and stranger, still. They were evenly timed, like a heartbeat. No natural object produced a signal like that. Elena called to her colleague, Victor, who was half asleep in the corner. "Victor," she said, her voice calm but urgent. "You need to see this." Victor dragged himself over, glanced at the data, and his sleepy eyes widened. This is coming from deep in the Kuiper belt, and it's moving." Elena tapped a few keys, running the calculations. The object's path curved toward the inner solar system. "It's accelerating," she said quietly. "It's not a comet, not an asteroid. Something's controlling it." The whisper in the dark within hours, the data had traveled through encrypted channels to the Sentinel Council, a secretive global organization formed decades ago for one purpose: to prepare Earth for the day an unknown presence arrived. Most people didn't even know the Sentinel Council existed. It operated in shadows, funded quietly through hidden budgets. Even world leaders were given only partial information. In an underground facility beneath the Nevada desert, Director Samuel Hayes read the report from Elena's team. He was an older man, his hair white, but his eyes sharp. He had been with Sentinel since its founding, and he had always feared this day would come. He turned to the others gathered at the table, generals, scientists, and strategists from around the world. "We have a confirmed energy signature," Hayes said. "Patterned emissions, non-random movement. They are coming." A murmur spread through the room. "Do we know their intentions?" asked General Liang from China's Defense Department. Hayes shook his head. "We don't. But objects don't accelerate on their own in deep space. Something is piloting those ships, and they are heading directly toward the inner system." The invaders' view far beyond the orbit of Neptune, a fleet of ships moved, in perfect formation. They were shaped like long, dark spears, each hundreds of meters in length. Inside the command ship, Commander Cravath of the Vorath Dominion stood on the bridge, watching the blue-green holographic display of the solar system. His voice was deep and certain as he addressed his crew. "Target, third planet from the star. Designation by natives, Earth. Estimated technological level, primitive. Energy weapons unknown. Space combat capability, minimal." The Vorath had conquered dozens of worlds. To them, Earth was simply another resource to be harvested, another population to be controlled. They had little concern for resistance. One of Cravath's officers, a tall figure with scaled skin and cold eyes, gestured toward the display. "Shall we bypass the fourth planet entirely, Commander?" "Yes," Cravath said. "Mars is lifeless. Our goal is Earth. We will strike swiftly and take the planet before they can mount a defense." He didn't know that Mars was not as lifeless as he thought, at least not in the way that mattered. Earth reacts in Nevada, the Sentinel Council debated their next move. "We need to know exactly what we're dealing with," said Dr. Alicia Werner, head of astrophysics for Sentinel. "If this is a fleet, We must estimate its size and capabilities before we take any action. General Thompson, a tall man with a rigid posture, leaned forward. We've been preparing for this for years. We should activate the Sky Shield program. Immediately. Hayes raised a hand. We moved too soon. They might detect our defenses and adapt. We need them to believe we are unprepared until it's too late. Dr. Werner pointed at the projection of the alien trajectory. At their current speed, they will pass Mars in 17 days. That gives us just over 2 weeks to prepare. A silence settled over the room. Finally, Hayes turned to an aide. Send word to Captain Marcus Lee. Tell him Sentinel needs him back. The reluctant veteran, thousands of kilometers away, in a quiet coastal town, Captain Marcus Lee lived a peaceful life. Once he had been one of Earth's top astronauts, commanding missions to the moon and beyond. After his last mission, he retired, seeking a quieter existence. He was repairing a fishing net on his small boat when the black sedan pulled up on the pier. 2 men in dark suits stepped out. One of them handed him a sealed envelope. Marcus read, the message inside, his expression tightening. He looked out toward the horizon, the waves lapping softly at the shore. He had promised himself he would never return to the shadows of Sentinel, but some promises couldn't be kept. A hidden history. That night, Marcus boarded a secure jet bound for Nevada. When he arrived at the Sentinel facility, he was greeted by Hayes, an old friend and mentor. "It's real this time, isn't it?" Marcus asked without sitting down. Hayes nodded gravely. "A fleet. Large. Coordinated. They will be here soon." Marcus walked to the massive screen at the end of the room. It displayed the alien ships as faint white dots moving slowly inward from the edge of the solar system. "They don't know about Sky Shield?" Marcus asked. "No," Hayes said. "And we intend to keep it that way until the perfect moment." Sky Shield was humanity's greatest secret, an array of orbital weapons, stealth satellites, and hidden defense platforms spread across the solar system. The public believed they were scientific satellites or abandoned space projects. In reality, they were the core of Earth's defense strategy. But Sky Shield wasn't the only surprise. Decades earlier, Sentinel had placed automated defense systems on Mars, hidden deep beneath the surface, disguised as geological structures. Few, even within Sentinel, knew the full extent of the Mars network. The intercept back in Chile, Elena and Victor continued tracking the fleet. The signals grew stronger each day, the alien ships now close enough for more detailed scans. One evening, Elena noticed something unusual. The aliens had sent a narrow beam transmission, a sharp pulse aimed at deep space. She forwarded the data to Sentinel's codebreakers. Within hours, Sentinel decrypted part of the message. It wasn't a greeting or a warning. It was a status update to the alien homeworld, reporting their position and expected arrival time at Earth. "They're not here to talk," Marcus said after reading the translation. "They're here to take." Hayes gave the order. "Activate Operation Watchtower. Every defense system from the asteroid belt inward goes on alert." The calm. Before the storm-as days passed, the alien fleet drew nearer. Sentinel agents worked around the clock, quietly moving key personnel to secure locations, redirecting satellites, and preparing contingency plans. In space, automated drone carriers powered up, their engines dark to avoid detection. On Mars, sensors buried beneath the soil began transmitting silent readiness codes. The general public had no idea. The news spoke of politics, sports, and weather. Nothing about the silent armada approaching from the black. A final warning. 1 week before the fleet would reach Mars, Elena received a private message from Hayes. It contained a short clip from the alien transmission she had helped detect. The translation scrolled across her screen. "Earth. Target confirmed. Weak. Will not resist." She stared at the words for a long time. They had no idea who they were dealing with. That night, She stood outside the observatory looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, those ships were moving, confident in their victory. They didn't know the traps waiting for them. The closing moment in the Vorath flagship, Commander Cravath stood at the observation deck, watching the distant sun grow brighter. The blue-green world he sought was still far away, but in his mind, it was already his. "Stay on course," he ordered. "We will pass the red planet without slowing. Let them see us only when it is too late." Far ahead, Mars turned slowly. In the darkness, its thin atmosphere tinted orange by the sun. Beneath its surface, something ancient stirred, not alien but human, and it was waiting. The blackness of space stretched endlessly around the Vorath fleet. No stars twinkled here, only cold points of light, far away and indifferent. In the flagship's command chamber, Commander Cravath stood tall, his scaled hands clasped behind his back. The air was cool, filled with the low hum of the ship's core engines. Holographic maps of the solar system floated in the air before him, glowing in pale blue. "Course steady. Arrival at the 4th planet in 6 rotations," reported the navigation officer. Cravath didn't glance at the officer. His gaze was fixed on the 3rd planet in the projection, Earth. "Bypass Mars," he said. "There is no need to waste resources. Earth is our target." Around him, the other Vorath officers stood at their stations. They didn't question his decision. The Dominion had conquered many worlds before. Primitive civilizations always fell. Quickly, their weapons were outdated, their strategies predictable. To them, Earth was just another easy conquest. Signals in the void, but the Vorath didn't know they were already being watched. Far behind them, a small, dark object drifted, silently in the shadows of space. It had no crew, no lights, no heat signature, just a cold metal frame bristling with sensors. It was one of Sentinel's deep eyes, an autonomous stealth probe. The probe had been launched years ago, hidden inside an asteroid mining drone. Its purpose was simple: to hide in the darkness beyond Neptune, waiting for anything unusual. The moment it detected the alien fleet's emissions, it sent a burst transmission to Earth, a tight, encrypted signal that could pass for harmless. Background noise to anyone who didn't know what to look for. In Nevada, the Sentinel Council received the update. Now they had precise data on the fleet's formation, speed, and energy patterns. "They are in a tight spearhead," Dr. Alicia Werner noted, studying the hologram. "That makes them fast but predictable. If we strike from multiple angles, they won't be able to adapt quickly." General Thompson nodded. "Then we set the trap early. The Mars network is ready." The man in command, Captain Marcus Lee, stood in the middle of the control room, scanning the flow of incoming reports. He wore a simple dark uniform with no medals, no rank displayed. Sentinel didn't care for ceremony. He had returned reluctantly. But now that he was here, the old instincts were alive again. His voice was steady as he gave orders. "Keep our outward transmissions to a minimum." "I don't want the fleet to suspect we're aware of them," Marcus said. "Deploy ghost drones along their path. I want real-time tracking until they hit Mars orbit." One of the officers turned to him. "What if they detect the drones?" "They won't," Marcus replied. "We designed them to look like fragments of rock." He walked over to Hayes, who was reviewing planetary defense reports. "We're ready," Marcus said. "But if we fire too soon, they might scatter before the Mars guns can take them out." Hayes nodded. "We'll wait for your mark." Life. Inside the alien fleet on the Vorath flagship, Commander Cravath addressed his crew. "The planet we approach is rich in oceans and green lands," Cravath said. "Its atmosphere is compatible with minimal adaptation. The population is numerous but uncoordinated. Our occupation will be swift." The crew listened in silence, their expressions confident. A communications officer reported, "Our scouts detect no advanced defense platforms. Their satellites are small, low-powered, and unarmed. Space travel is limited to orbital range." "Good," Cravath said. They will not see us coming. The fleet glided forward, engines glowing faintly. Around them, the stars shifted ever so slowly. The commander thought of the Dominion's long history of conquest and saw Earth as nothing more than another step in their expansion. Mars, the silent fortress. Meanwhile, Mars turned quietly in its lonely orbit. Dust storms swept across its surface, but beneath the barren plains, hidden tunnels and chambers were alive with activity. Sentinel's red shield network had been buried there decades ago. Its existence was known to fewer than 50 people on Earth. Rows of railgun barrels lay concealed beneath layers of rock and dust, their barrels aimed at the void. The weapons were fully automated, powered by deep fusion reactors that could stay active for centuries. Maintenance robots, shaped like small spiders, scurried through the tunnels, checking power lines and targeting systems. No human had set foot in these chambers for years, but the network was fully operational. When the Vorath fleet came within range, Mars would not greet them with silence. The signal on. The 6th day of travel toward Mars, Cravath's sensors picked up something faint, a repeating pulse from the direction of the 4th planet. Unidentified transmission, reported the sensor officer. It is too weak to be an alert signal, possibly geological activity. Cravath didn't care. Ignore it. Focus on our approach vector. But on Earth, that faint signal meant everything. It was the Mars network sending its readiness code to Sentinel. Marcus received the message and gave a short nod. They're in the net, Marcus said. All units, hold positions until they pass the first strike line. The calm before. At the lunar deep scan array, Dr. Elena Torres kept her eyes fixed on the incoming data. She had been tracking the fleet's movement for days now, sleeping only in short bursts. They're keeping a straight course, Victor told her. That's what worries me, Elena replied. They're not scouting, not adjusting. It's like they think nothing can stop them. Victor tried to smile. Maybe nothing can. Elena shook her head. Oh, something can. They just don't know it yet. A quiet launch from the far side of the moon, a hidden bay door slid open. A small, sleek craft emerged, one of Earth's shadow arrows. The shadow arrows weren't meant for combat. They were reconnaissance craft, built to slip close to enemy ships without detection, mapping heat signatures, shield patterns, and weak points. This arrow drifted silently toward the Vorath fleet, using no engines, only the gravity of nearby planets to adjust its course. By the time it passed within a few thousand kilometers of the fleet, its sensors had already mapped the thermal outlines of every ship. It sent the data back in a single tight beam burst to Mars, then self-destructed into harmless fragments, looking no different from ordinary space debris. On Mars, the Red Shield Network's AI received the targeting data. Now it knew exactly where to aim. The Vorath's final confidence. 3 days before reaching Mars, Cravath called his senior officers to the bridge. Our arrival will be unopposed, he declared. Once we are past the Red Planet, we will descend on Earth in full force. Their primitive governments will surrender before the first orbital strike. One officer asked, Shall we prepare ground units for immediate deployment? Yes, Cravath replied. We will secure their capitals and communication centers first. Then we will... He stopped mid-sentence, glancing at the holographic map. Something flickered there. A brief anomaly. What was that? Cravath demanded. Nothing significant, the sensor officer replied quickly. Just a small metallic object passing near the fleet, likely a fragment from the asteroid belt. Cravath accepted the explanation. He had no reason to believe otherwise. On Earth, the countdown in the Nevada Control Center, a massive digital timer counted down to the predicted moment when the Vorath fleet would enter Mars's kill zone. Marcus stood at the center of the room, his arms folded. Hayes approached him. Once we fire, Hayes said quietly. There's no turning back. This will be our first and only shot to take them by surprise. Marcus nodded. And if we miss, Earth will pay the price. He looked at the screen, showing the alien formation. We won't miss. Mars awaits. Beneath the surface of Mars, the fusion cores of the railguns began to hum softly. Power levels climbed. Massive coils charged with magnetic energy, capable of launching tungsten slugs at a fraction of light speed. The barrels shifted ever so slightly, aligning with their targets millions of kilometers away. In the cold tunnels, the maintenance drones stopped moving. Their work was done. Now the guns waited in perfect stillness for the order to fire. The fleet approaches. The Vorath fleet neared Mars, engines steady, formation tight. Cravath gazed at the red planet on the view screen. Ignore it, he said. It is dead and empty. Focus on the third planet. None of the officers noticed that Mars seemed strangely still. No visible satellites, no surface activity. It looked as harmless as a rock drifting in the void. The final moments of peace on Earth, Elena Torres sat in the observatory staring at her screen. She whispered to herself, "This is it." In Nevada, Marcus watched the countdown. His voice was calm when he spoke into the microphone. "Red Shield, you are cleared to fire on my mark." In the tunnels of Mars, the automated systems waited in. The Vorath flagship, Cravath felt a faint vibration through the deck plates, though he didn't know what caused it. The instant Marcus Lee gave the order, the silence beneath Mars shattered. Deep under the dusty plains of Elysium Planitia, vast coils of magnetic energy discharged in a violent rush. Massive tungsten slugs, each weighing hundreds of kilograms, shot down long barrels at a fraction of light speed. The first volley left no flash, no visible sign from the surface, but far above, in the cold darkness of space, the Vorath fleet felt it. The first impact on, the flagship Dominion Spear. Commander. Cravath had just turned to his officers when the ship shook violently. A sound like distant thunder rolled through the hull, though in space it was felt more than heard. "Report!" he barked. "Impact on port shield," the defense officer shouted. "Energy output dropping, 40%. Before Cravath could reply, a second slug slammed into the fleet's lead escort ship. The slug punched through its shields, tore straight through its armored hull, and continued out the other side. The escort ship drifted silently, its lights flickering. Seconds. Later, its reactor failed and the vessel went dark. Cravath's eyes widened. "Where is it coming from?" The sensor officer stared at his console. "Unknown. No visible ships. No energy signatures. It's..." Another impact rocked the flagship. Precision fire on Mars. The Red Shield Network's AI worked without pause. The targeting data from the Shadow Arrow probe had been perfect. Each slug was aimed at a critical point: shield generators, weapon arrays, or engine clusters. Railguns fired in perfect rhythm, launching one projectile every 3 seconds. The planet's rotation was accounted for in every shot, the slugs traveling millions of kilometers with pinpoint accuracy. From space, Mars looked as silent as ever. No flare of energy betrayed the hidden guns. The Vorath saw only a lifeless planet, yet death was coming from beneath its skin. The fleet in chaos. Within minutes, the Vorath's tight formation began to crumble. Ships swerved wildly, trying to evade the invisible fire. Some activated full shields, but the constant impacts overloaded them in seconds. On the bridge of the Dominion Spear, officers shouted over each other. "Starboard cruiser destroyed. Shields at 20%. 2 more impacts detected." Cravath gripped the railing. "Find the source. Scan the 4th planet again." The sensor officer hesitated. "Commander, the strikes are coming from the planet itself." Cravath's eyes narrowed. "Impossible. Our scans showed no weapons. Mars is dead." "Not anymore," the officer replied grimly. On Earth, watching the battle in Nevada, Marcus stood at the center of the control room, eyes locked on the large display showing the fleet's destruction. Target count? Hayes asked. 6 confirmed kills, Marcus replied. 5 more ships crippled, the rest are scattering. The operators cheered quietly, though Marcus raised a hand for silence. Don't celebrate yet. They'll adapt. Dr. Alicia Werner leaned closer to the display. Some of them are changing course, trying to move behind Mars to shield themselves. Marcus nodded. Let them try. The trap tightens. The Vorath fleet shifted position, using the curve of Mars to block incoming fire. But the Red Shield network had prepared for that. Additional rail guns, hidden in polar installations, came online. These guns had different firing arcs, allowing them to strike ships even on the far side of the planet. The first polar volley caught 2 ships mid-maneuver, breaking their hulls apart. Pieces of metal spun away into the void. The Vorath realized too late that Mars was a fortress. The commander's Fury Cravath slammed a clawed fist against the console. All ships, return fire! Saturate the planet's surface! The fleet unleashed. A storm of plasma bolts and missile salvos toward Mars. The weapons burned brightly in the darkness, but most of them hit nothing. The railguns were too well hidden. The projectiles simply exploded harmlessly in the thin Martian atmosphere or struck empty planes. The few that did hit buried themselves in rock, far from the underground chambers. Minimal effect, reported a Vorath gunner. Cravath felt cold rage rising. This was supposed to be an easy conquest. Instead, his fleet was being torn apart before reaching its main target. An unseen enemy in the middle of the chaos, a small Vorath scout ship broke from formation. Its mission: locate and disable whatever weapons Mars was hiding. The scout descended toward the planet, entering low orbit. Its sensors swept the surface, searching for any energy signatures. It found nothing. The railguns remained powered through deeply buried fusion cores, their emissions invisible from orbit. Then, without warning, a single slug from a nearby installation tore the scout apart. In Nevada, Marcus allowed himself the smallest smile. Nice try. The turning point, after 40 minutes of sustained fire, the Vorath fleet was in ruins. Nearly half the ships had been destroyed or disabled. The rest were damaged, their shields and weapons running low on power. Marcus studied the tactical map. They'll try to retreat, he said. We can't let them escape to warn their homeworld. Hayes nodded. Agreed. We activate Phase 2. Phase 2. The hunters, from behind Mars' largest moon, Phobos, a group of automated drone ships emerged. Sleek and black, they moved with silent precision, engines flaring briefly before cutting again to avoid detection. Each drone carried guided kinetic missiles designed for long-range kills. The drones fanned out, targeting the fleeing Vorath ships. Within minutes, the missiles streaked silently through space, striking hulls and tearing them apart. The Vorath had no defense left. The flagship's desperation aboard the Dominion Spear, Cravath's second-in-command, approached. Commander, our position is untenable. We must withdraw. Cravath's jaw tightened. Withdraw to where? Past this cursed planet, Earth will be waiting. Behind us, the path is long and exposed. Better to regroup and send word to the Dominion than to die here, the officer insisted. Cravath hesitated, then gave the order. All remaining ships, retreat toward Jupiter. We will repair and return. The pursuit. But Marcus had anticipated this. On the asteroid belt's edge, more of Sentinel's hidden defenses came to life. Stationary railguns and guided drones intercepted the retreating ships, forcing them into narrow corridors where escape was impossible. The fleet broke apart under the combined assault. Ship after ship vanished from the tactical map. Mars falls, silent again. 2 hours after the first shot was fired, Mars was quiet once more. The Red Shield network shut down its weapons, burying them back into stillness beneath the dust. From orbit, there was no sign of the battle that had taken place. No craters, no wreckage on the surface. The only evidence lay in the drifting debris fields between Mars and the asteroid belt. Aftermath in the control room. In Nevada, the room was filled with low conversation. Screens displayed the wreckage of the Vorath fleet. "How many escaped?" Hayes asked. "2 confirmed," Marcus replied. "Possibly 3, but they won't get far," Dr. Werner added. "We intercepted a transmission from the flagship before it fled. It was short, but the translation is clear. Earth is not weak." Marcus nodded slowly. "Good. Let them remember that." The surviving flagship far from Mars, the damaged Dominion spear limped toward the outer system. Inside, Cravath stared at the stars ahead. He had underestimated the humans. That mistake had cost him his fleet. But he would not forget the hidden guns of Mars. He activated the comms, sending a heavily encrypted message into the void. Somewhere, light years away, the Dominion would receive it. The message was simple. "We have found a dangerous world. Prepare for war." Closing scene on Earth, Elena Torres sat at her console in Chile, watching the last pieces of Vorath wreckage drift past Mars. She felt both relief and unease. "We stopped them this time," she murmured to Victor. "But this was just the first wave." Victor nodded. "And the next one will come prepared." Elena looked up at the night sky, knowing the stars no longer held just beauty. They held eyes, watching, waiting. The Earth was silent from space. From the observation deck of the Aurora Sentinel, Captain Miles stood with his arms crossed, his eyes fixed on the faint glimmers of the Martian orbit. He knew the enemy ships were somewhere beyond that darkness. The previous battles had slowed them, but the alien armada still moved forward, their formation tight, their intent unchanged. They wanted Earth, and nothing was going to stop them except total destruction. The Aurora Sentinel was the largest human-built warship ever launched. Over 2 kilometers long, armed with railguns, energy cannons, and swarms of automated drones, it was the spearhead of Earth's defense line, stationed between Mars and the asteroid belt. Around it floated a fleet of smaller vessels, frigates, cruisers, and carriers, all prepared for a final stand. "Status report," Captain Miles said without turning. Commander Rivera, his second-in-command, stepped forward. "All ships in the line are in position. Drone swarms are on standby. Energy reserves are at full capacity. Long-range sensors detect enemy movement. 2 hours until engagement range." Miles nodded. His jaw tightened. 2 hours. That was all the time they had left to prepare for what could be the final battle. The enemy's approach far beyond. The alien fleet was advancing in a perfect, almost beautiful formation. The Zorathian ships were sleek, sharp-edged, and glowing faintly with blue energy. They didn't waste movement. They didn't make mistakes. Every shift in position was deliberate. Every maneuver had purpose. Inside the Zorathian command vessel, the Supreme Controller observed the human blockade with calm confidence. They had studied human weapons, tactics, and weaknesses for decades. This battle was supposed to be inevitable. Victory. "Increase forward velocity," the controller ordered. "Their defenses will crumble once the first line is broken." They had no idea that humans had prepared something new, something the Zorathians had never seen. Preparing the trap deep inside the Aurora Sentinel, engineers worked on the Aegis Net, a secret weapon that had been in development for months. It wasn't a gun or a missile. It was a massive web of energy-based mines, linked through an AI system that could adapt in real time to enemy movement. Dr. Ilara Voss, the chief scientist behind the Aegis Net, stood in the control room, speaking quickly into her headset. "Once they enter the net zone, the mines will activate in sequence," she explained to Miles. "It's not just about destroying them, it's about forcing them into chaos. They rely on tight formations. Break that, and they'll lose their advantage." Miles nodded. And if they detect it? Elara smirked faintly. They won't. The net is cloaked in their own sensor frequencies. We've been listening to their communications for weeks. Commander Rivera crossed her arms. If this works, we can end the war before they even reach Mars. Tension in the fleet. The fleet's crew members prepared in silence. Every soldier knew what was at stake. On smaller ships, engineers checked power conduits, pilots ran last-minute simulations, and medics stocked emergency bays. Even though they were ready for battle, a deep quiet settled over the fleet, as if everyone could feel the weight of the moment. On the vigilant dawn, a young pilot named Kai was staring at a small photo in his cockpit. It was of his family back on Earth. He whispered to himself, "I'm not letting them get close." His co-pilot, Mira, glanced at him. "You better not. I promised my little brother I'd be home after this." Kai grinned faintly. "Then we both have a reason to win." The first contact and alarm sounded across the Aurora Sentinel. "Enemy fleet entering range," Rivera announced. Miles turned toward the tactical display. The alien ships were glowing brighter now, their energy readings spiking as they accelerated. "Deploy the Aegis net," Miles ordered. Invisible to the naked eye, hundreds of small energy mines were released into space, each one powered by microfusion cores. They floated in a wide arc between Mars and the asteroid belt, linked by an invisible grid of energy threads. The AI began calculating movement patterns, preparing for impact. The alien fleet moved in without hesitation. Their sensors detected nothing unusual. "Hold fire," Miles commanded. "Wait for them to step into the trap." The trap is sprung. The first Zorathian ships crossed the activation line. The Aegis net came alive. One by one, the invisible energy threads lit up, releasing bursts of electromagnetic force. The first alien frigate's shields collapsed instantly, followed by a violent explosion as a mine detonated directly on its hull. The Zorathians reacted instantly, breaking formation slightly, but that small break was all the AI needed. The net shifted, targeting the weak points, detonating in carefully calculated patterns. Ships began colliding with each other, their perfect formation fracturing into chaos. On the Aurora Sentinel, the crew watched in awe as the alien fleets, once unbreakable unity, dissolved. "Now!" Miles shouted. "All ships, open fire!" The human counterattack railguns thundered, launching hypervelocity rounds across the void. Energy cannons released blinding beams that tore through alien armor. Drone swarms darted between enemy ships, planting charges and jamming communications. Kai's fighter squadron dove straight into the chaos, targeting the disoriented Zorathian cruisers. Mira's voice was calm despite the adrenaline. "Two on, our tail. Breaking left!" Kai rolled hard, releasing countermeasures. A small enemy craft exploded behind them. The space around Mars lit up with flashes of fire and energy, a deadly storm in the black void. The Zorathian desperation. Inside their command vessel, the Supreme Controller gripped the armrest. "Regain formation! Focus fire on their lead ship!" But it was too late. The Aegis net continued adapting, predicting every move before it happened. The alien fleet was bleeding ships at a rate they had never experienced before. For the first time in the war, the Zorathians felt fear. A risky maneuver. Despite their advantage, Miles knew they couldn't just fight defensively. "Bring us forward," he ordered. "We take out their command ship and the rest will fall apart." Rivera looked at him. "That puts us in direct fire range." "I know," Miles said, "but this ends today." The Aurora Sentinel pushed forward, its massive cannons charging for a full-power blast. The alien command ship loomed ahead, still directing what was left of the fleet. The decisive strike at point-blank range, the Aurora Sentinel fired its primary railgun. The shot tore through the Zorathian command ship, ripping it apart in a blinding flash. Without leadership, the alien fleet broke completely, scattering in all directions. The human ships pressed the attack, hunting down the fleeing vessels. By the time the last alien craft was destroyed, the space between Mars and the asteroid belt was littered with debris. Aftermath. The silence after the battle felt heavier than the fight itself. On every ship, exhausted crews stared at the wreckage. They had won, but they all knew this was only one battle in a larger war. On the Aurora Sentinel, Miles stood at the observation deck again, watching the drifting remains of the alien fleet. "They'll come again," Rivera said quietly. "Yes," Miles replied, "but next time, they'll remember Mars." The great blackness of space was silent again. No massive fleets, no glowing alien engines, no shadow blotting out the stars. Only the quiet hum of Earth's satellites and the faint golden light of the sun. But inside Earth's orbital defense station, the air was tense. Every radar screen, every camera feed, every sensor was focused on the debris field near Mars. The alien fleet, once a terrifying wall of destruction, was gone. Destroyed before they could even reach the Red Planet. General Marcus Hale stood at the observation window, his hands behind his back. His sharp eyes scanned the darkness where it had all happened. It still didn't feel real. They were faster than us, stronger than us, and they didn't even get close, he said quietly. Dr. Elena Ward, the lead scientist of the Interplanetary Defense Network, stepped beside him. She was still in her lab coat, her hair slightly messy from hours without sleep. "We still don't know what destroyed them," she admitted. "It wasn't us. No weapon we fired made that kind of damage." Hale nodded slowly. Then someone, or something, else stepped in. The debris peeled across the void. A team of unmanned drones drifted toward the floating wreckage of alien ships. Their hulls were torn apart in perfect, clean cuts. No burn marks, no explosions, just dismantled, as if the ships had been sliced open like paper. Commander Rhea Collins, controlling the drones from Earth, frowned as she watched the live feed. "Sir, you need to see this," she radioed. A camera zoomed in on a fragment of alien metal. Strange, glowing patterns crawled across its surface like living circuits. Then, as if sensing the camera's presence, the glow faded and the metal crumbled into dust. Hale stared at the monitor. "Self-destruction?" Elena shook her head. "No, this is something else, something that erases technology itself." An unexpected signal hours later, deep inside the defense station's communications room, a faint signal was detected, coming from the far side of Mars. It wasn't alien language, and it wasn't human either. It was a repeating pattern, almost, like a heartbeat. Technician Leo Grant ran the audio through multiple filters. "It's not random. It's a message," he said. The pattern, once decoded, formed a simple sentence. "Leave this system. It is not yours." Everyone in the room went silent. Questions with no answers. "What does that mean? Who sent it?" asked Collins, her voice uneasy. Elena leaned over the console, listening to the strange, pulsing tone again. "Whoever destroyed the fleet, they're warning us." Hale turned toward her. "Warning us? Or claiming this territory?" Elena didn't answer. Back on Earth, scientists debated endlessly. Some thought it was an ancient guardian force that had been in the solar system long before humans. Others believed it was another alien race, far more advanced, protecting Mars for reasons unknown. Whatever the truth was, one fact was certain. Humanity had not been saved by its own power. Earth responds. The United Earth Council met within days. News of the alien fleet's destruction had spread to every corner of the planet, bringing relief and fear in equal measure. People celebrated in the streets, thinking they were safe, but the Council knew better. They sent a carefully worded message into space. "We do not seek conflict. We will respect your boundaries. We ask for understanding." For weeks, no reply came. The stars remained silent. the black shape. Then, one night, the defense station picked up a shadow moving past the moon. It wasn't a meteor. It wasn't debris. It was massive, larger than any alien ship they had seen before. The shape didn't approach Earth. Instead, it drifted slowly toward the outer edges of the solar system. Collins watched it on her screen, whispering, "It's leaving." Elena narrowed her eyes. Or repositioning. The truth about Mars. Before the shadow disappeared beyond detection range, one of the drones near Mars found something. Buried beneath the planet's surface, under miles of rock, was a vast metallic structure. It wasn't part of the destroyed fleet. It had been there for centuries. It pulsed faintly with the same pattern as the mysterious warning signal. Hale stood in the control room, looking at the readings. "We've been watched for a long time," he said, "and now they've revealed themselves." The final decision. In the end, the Council made a choice that would change humanity's future. No human mission would land on Mars for the next 50 years. The official reason was safety concerns. The real reason was fear. Scientists still studied the wreckage of the alien fleet. The more they learned, the clearer it became. Human weapons could not have done this. The force that destroyed the invaders could do the same to Earth in an instant. For now, the mysterious protector, or ruler of Mars, had spared them. But no one knew why. The last transmission. Months later, a final signal arrived. It was the same pulsing tone, but with a new message. They were warned. You are warned. Hale listened to it alone in the observation room. He didn't know if they referred to the invaders or to humanity itself. As he stared at Mars through the viewing glass, the red planet seemed almost alive, glowing faintly under the sun's light. Somewhere under its surface, something powerful and ancient was watching and waiting.